Imagine being dragged from your childhood home in the dead of night, screaming and crying, while your new husband's friends cheer and laugh. Now imagine this wasn't a kidnapping, this was your wedding night, and it was completely legal. In ancient Rome, what happened between sunset and sunrise on a bride's first night of marriage was so terrifying that even the most powerful women in the empire couldn't escape it. Today we're diving into the dark, disturbing traditions that made Roman wedding nights a living nightmare. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at ancient Rome the same way again. The Roman wedding ceremony didn't end with vows and celebration. It ended with what they called raptio, a staged abduction that was all too real. As the sun set, the bride would be forcibly torn from her mother's arms, often screaming and resisting, while guests watched and applauded this charming tradition. This wasn't considered cruel or unusual. It was seen as reenacting the legendary rape of the Sabine women, one of Rome's founding myths. The bride's resistance wasn't just expected, it was required. If she went willingly, it was considered shameful and suggested she had loose morals. So even if she loved her husband, she had to put on a performance of terror, crying genuine tears while being dragged through the streets to her new home, with torch-bearing revelers following behind, singing obscene songs. Once torn from her mother's embrace, the bride was paraded through the streets of Rome in a torchlit procession designed to humiliate and intimidate. The crowd would sing fescennine verses, sexually explicit songs filled with graphic descriptions of what awaited her in the marriage bed. These weren't gentle love songs. They were crude, vulgar chants that would make even modern audiences blush. The bride had to walk this gauntlet while maintaining the appearance of modesty, her face covered by a flame-colored veil called a flamme maium. Behind that veil, many brides wept genuine tears of fear, knowing that their childhood was ending and a terrifying unknown lay ahead. Young girls, some as young as 12, were led through jeering crowds who treated their terror as entertainment. When the procession reached the groom's house, the bride faced the infamous threshold test, but not the romantic version we know today. The groom didn't gently carry his bride across. He dragged or shoved her over the threshold while she resisted. The doorway represented the boundary between her old life and her new imprisonment, and Roman tradition demanded she appear to be forced across it against her will. The threshold itself was smeared with wolf fat and decorated with wool, symbols meant to ensure fertility, whether the bride wanted children or not. Once she crossed, she could never truly go back. Divorce was nearly impossible for women, and her father's household was closed to her. That doorway was a portal to a life she had no choice but to accept. Inside the home, the bride was subjected to the aqua et ignis ceremony, the ritual of fire and water. She was required to touch fire and water as symbols of her new domestic duties, but the symbolism went deeper and darker. Fire represented the hearth she would tend forever. Water represented the tears she would shed and the cleansing of her former identity. This wasn't a brief symbolic gesture. The bride had to kneel before the household shrine, renouncing her family's gods and accepting her husband's deities. She was literally erasing who she had been, surrendering her name, her identity, and her spiritual connections. For many young girls torn from loving families, this moment was when the true horror of their situation became undeniable. Here's where things become truly disturbing. The wedding night wasn't private. Roman tradition required witnesses to ensure the marriage was consummated. meaning friends and family members would wait just outside the bedroom door, or sometimes inside the room itself. The purpose was to verify the bride's virginity and the marriage's legitimacy, but the reality was far more invasive and traumatic. The bride knew that her cries, her pain, her most vulnerable moment would be heard or even seen by others. In some aristocratic families, a pronouncement of blood-stained sheets was required the next morning as proof of virginity. Imagine the psychological torture of knowing your trauma would be public knowledge, dissected and discussed by your new relatives over breakfast. Roman law and custom demanded absolute submission from the bride during the wedding night. She had no legal right to refuse her husband. Extramarital rape wasn't just legal, it was considered a husband's right and duty. The wedding night established the power dynamic that would define the rest of her life. She was property, and her husband was master. If a bride resisted too much or failed to properly submit, she could be beaten or sent back to her family in disgrace, branded as defective or disobedient. The wedding night wasn't about love or mutual desire. It was about breaking a young woman's will and establishing male dominance. Many brides learned quickly that survival meant silence and submission. The age of Roman brides makes these rituals even more horrifying. Girls were typically married between ages 12 and 15, often to men decades older. These weren't women, they were children, torn from their dolls and games to face wedding night rituals they couldn't possibly understand or consent to in any meaningful way. Historical records show that many child brides didn't survive their first pregnancy, their bodies too young to safely bear children. Yet the wedding night rituals proceeded regardless, with adults celebrating traditions that amounted to legalized child abuse. The younger the bride, the more valuable she was considered. Innocence and vulnerability weren't red flags, they were selling points. If you thought the horror ended with the wedding night, think again. The next morning brought the reconductio, where the bride had to appear before her new family, and sometimes the wedding guests, to prove the marriage had been consummated. She had to display evidence of her virginity and accept congratulations for her husband's successful claiming of her body. This morning ritual was designed to cement her humiliation and ensure she understood her new status. She was no longer a daughter with potential. She was a wife whose primary value lay in her reproductive capacity. Many young brides described this morning ritual as worse than the night before, as they had to face their trauma in daylight, with smiling faces pretending everything was normal and natural. Even women who married into ultimate power empresses and queens couldn't escape these rituals. Livia Drusilla, who would become Rome's most powerful empress, endured a wedding night to her first husband that followed all these horrifying traditions. Her later marriage to Emperor Augustus was slightly more dignified, but only because she was already married and pregnant when he claimed her. Julia, daughter of Augustus, was married multiple times for political alliances, enduring these rituals repeatedly with different husbands. Her power, her royal blood, her father's status as emperor, none of it protected her from the fundamental reality that Roman marriage law viewed all women, even imperial daughters, as vessels to be claimed and controlled. Archaeological discoveries have revealed the hidden pain behind these rituals. Cursed tablets, lead sheets inscribed with pleas to the gods, have been found buried throughout Rome, many written by young brides. These tablets beg for deliverance from cruel husbands, for infertility to avoid pregnancy, or for death rather than continued marriage. One heartbreaking tablet found near a Roman villa reads, "I was 12 when they gave me to him. I pray to die before I bear his child." These weren't rare sentiments. They were common enough that archaeologists have found hundreds of similar tablets. The ritual celebrations we see in Roman art and literature hid an ocean of female suffering that these tablets finally reveal. Ancient medical texts reveal another disturbing aspect of Roman wedding nights. Physicians were commonly called to treat young brides for injuries sustained during consummation. Soranus of Ephesus, a prominent Roman physician, wrote detailed instructions for treating wedding night trauma, including severe tearing and bleeding that required medical intervention. These weren't exceptional cases. They were common enough that medical manuals included standard protocols. The text discussed child brides' injuries in clinical language, never questioning whether the entire system was fundamentally wrong. Some physicians noted that younger brides suffered more severe injuries. Yet the Roman solution wasn't to raise the marriage age. It was to develop better medical treatments for the consequences. The Roman wedding night rituals weren't just ancient history. They established patterns that persisted for centuries. Medieval Europe, Renaissance Italy, and even Victorian England maintained versions of these traditions, including public bedding ceremonies and the requirement for virginity proof. The Roman model of marriage as ownership rather than partnership shaped Western law for over 1,000 years. It wasn't until the late 20th century that marital rape became illegal in most Western countries. The United States didn't fully criminalize it in all states until 1993. The Roman idea that a husband owned his wife's body, established dramatically on the wedding night, proved remarkably durable. Understanding these ancient rituals helps us recognize how recently women gained basic bodily autonomy within marriage. So there you have it, the terrifying truth about Roman wedding night rituals that even empresses couldn't escape. These weren't romantic traditions or quaint customs. They were systematic exercises in control and domination, traumatizing generations of young girls in the name of tradition. From the ritual abduction to the morning after humiliation, every element was designed to break a bride's will and establish her powerlessness. If this video opened your eyes to the dark side of ancient Rome, hit that like button and subscribe for more historical deep dives that reveal the truth behind the myths. Drop a comment telling me which ancient tradition you want me to investigate next. I have a feeling there are plenty more shocking stories waiting to be uncovered. And here's a final thought to leave you with. How many traditions do we still follow today without questioning their origins? Sometimes the most normal customs have the darkest histories. See you in the next video where we'll dig into another historical truth that textbooks don't want to tell you.